Warning: contains adult content including harsh language, violence, and sexual themes, and may not be suitable for people under age 17.
An entire week rolled by, making a miserable experience for Nathaniel. He had done what Damien told him to and not spoken to him, but that hadn't stopped Damien from bumping into his shoulder or giving him icy cold stares. Then Nathaniel had a nice, calm weekend, before it all started up again. He arrived at school on Monday morning, looking forward to seeing how he did on his math homework, when he was suddenly shoved so hard he almost fell to the ground. Nathaniel looked around and saw Damien shooting daggers at him. Nathaniel stood up. "What is your problem?" he shouted, causing surrounding students to stop and stare. He didn't care that Damien told him not to talk to him. He was sick of being pecked at constantly. Damien smiled menacingly, the first smile Nathaniel had seen since that grin on their first day.
"You're my problem,"
he hissed. "Then why don't you just ignore me?" snapped Nathaniel.
"I dunno,"
said Damien, raising his eyebrows.
"You just get my blood boiling. I can't resist getting under your skin, to piss you off, knowing you won't do a thing about it."
"What makes you think I won't?" Nathaniel shouted, his hands balling into fists.
"Because, goody-goody,"
Damien replied.
"Violence is not the answer, is it? It's wrong to solve things by fighting. We should just all get along."
He took 2 steps forward and came so close to Nathaniel their noses were almost touching.
"In case you haven't noticed, that's not how the world works."
Nathaniel stared into his eyes, and then he smiled. "I know," he said, and suddenly punched Damien in the stomach. He recoiled, coughing slightly, but recovered quickly and retaliated. He kicked under Nathaniel's feet, who caught himself before he hit the ground. The students began to chant, "Fight! Fight! Fight!" even after the first bell rang. Nathaniel stood up and grabbed Damien's wrist, twisting them forcefully. "Just because human nature prohibits us from being honest and kind doesn't mean I have to succumb to it!" he shouted. Damien kicked Nathaniel in the stomach, making him release his wrists.
"Why bother?"
he shouted back as Nathaniel doubled over in pain.
"Why do you have to be better than everyone else just because you have morals? Are you proud of yourself? Do you think others will follow in your footsteps?"
"I don't expect anyone to conform to my beliefs," Nathaniel growled. They were circling each other now. "I may hope deep down that human beings will start showing kindness and do right things, but that's not my goal."
"Then what is your goal?"
Damien sneered, and Nathaniel rushed forward to strike again, but Damien stopped him. They were now face to face, hands gripping the others, pushing against each other with all their might.
"My goal,"
said Nathaniel through his teeth,
"is to do the right thing because it makes me feel happy!"
He gave a great push, but Damien remained stationary.
"Why don't you show me your wings, goody-goody? We all know you have them,"
he jeered, and Nathaniel was so shocked by the comment, Damien was able to finally push him down. He hit the asphalt hard, bumping the back of his head. He watched Damien as he walked away. Nathaniel sat up and looked around. The students were still staring, breath-taken by the fight. He was surprised to see that there were no teachers to break it up. "That just goes to show that no one cares anymore," he thought miserably. He stood up and walked slowly to his class. Walking through the door, he noticed that Damien wasn't even there. He was so taken aback he hadn't heard Mrs. O'Reilly scolding him for being late. When he realized she was talking, he gave his head a little shake. "I'm sorry, ma'am," he said hoarsely. He had never yelled so much in his life. "It won't happen again." Mrs. O'Reilly nodded, and Nathaniel continued to his desk, wondering where Damien could have possibly gone. By lunchtime, Nathaniel concluded that Damien must have ditched school, for he hadn't been to any of their classes. He wasn't sorry, though. He really didn't want to come face to face with him again. He knew he had to at some point, but right now he was just glad he had peace. Nathaniel ate the lunch he got from the cafeteria, leaving the chicken nuggets and the carton of milk alone and simply eating the corn.
"You can't keep this up, Damien."
"I hate him."
"I know you do, but you need to observe him."
"I don't want to!"
"I'm not asking you, I'm ordering you! I don't care if you have to pretend to be his friend. Just get on his good side and figure out who the hell he is."
Damien glared at his bedroom wall as he spoke to his father on the phone. If he had been there in person, he would have smacked him.
Dad,
he said softly, closing his eyes.
I don't think he's a threat, okay? I just think he's some little spoiled brat born with a silver spoon in his mouth.
I don't care,
his father replied.
Get into his inner circle, or there will be consequences.
With that, Damien's father hung up. He punched his black pillow and then ran his fingers through his hair.
Why me?
He murmured.
Why is it always me?
The next day, Damien came to school. He completely avoided Nathaniel's gaze, and in fact ignored him completely. Nathaniel couldn't help but feel relieved. At least one day without torture is nice. He just hoped it would last. During the lecture, Nathaniel glanced ahead at Damien's paper. He wasn't taking notes, but drawing instead. It was an extremely well-done sketch, despite being done in pen. From what Nathaniel could see, there was a silhouette of a man holding his arms out and being engulfed in flames. The rest of the drawing was obscured by Damien's arm. Nathaniel went back to taking notes on parabolas. Damien had left Nathaniel alone up until lunchtime, when he suddenly sat at the same table, across from him. Nathaniel looked up, surprised to see Damien glaring at him again. He decided not to be rude. "Hello," said Nathaniel calmly.
Hi,
Damien spat. "What can I do for you?" Damien looked away briefly, then met his eyes again.
You can accept my apology.
Nathaniel dropped his fork in surprise.
What?
He asked, not sure if he heard him right.
I'm sorry, okay?
Damien snapped.
I went too far. I still really hate you, don't get me wrong, but...
He let out a heavy sigh and rolled his eyes.
My dad says I need to make friends 'cause I'm so antisocial. So, I figured I'd try with you since you offered it in the first place.
I'm impressed, said Nathaniel with a smile. That took a lot of guts.
I still hate you,
Damien reminded him.
If you ask me, it's a complete waste of time. We have nothing in common.
Oh, come on. Everyone has something in common, Nathaniel retorted.
Oh, yeah?
Said Damien, and he started ticking off his fingers.
You're obviously a Christian, judging by the cross on your necklace. You dress so well you wouldn't be out of place at a dinner party. You care about respect and kindness, and you're a fucking saint. I bet you give to the needy and help the poor.
I would if I could, Nathaniel admitted. You're right about all those things. So, am I right to say you're satanic? He pointed at Damien's choker.
In a matter of speaking,
he replied. Do you really sacrifice goats?
No! Those type of Satanists give us a bad name!
All right, calm down, said Nathaniel with a smile. I bet you I can find one thing we have in common.
You're on, said Damien. Go ahead, try me.
Nathaniel beckoned Damien closer, then pointed over to a table full of girls. They had turned their heads quickly when they saw the two boys looking. I bet you hate all these girls goggling at us like we're spawn of Adonis. Damien sniggered and pulled away from Nathaniel.
All right,
he said, and he sounded impressed.
I'll give you that one. Jesus.
He looked at the girls again.
Women, fawning over us just because we're good-looking.
I don't think I'm that good-looking, said Nathaniel, picking up his fork and poking at his mashed potatoes.
You're fucking with me, said
Damien. No, I'm being quite serious.
Nathaniel, you're gorgeous.
Nathaniel looked at him, blushing slightly. How so? He asked slowly.
Well, your wavy golden hair falling into your perfect sapphire-colored eyes, fair ivory skin that's soft to the touch, your round boyish face.
He crossed his arms.
You're the guy women dream of. Picture perfect.
Nathaniel was red now. He tried to look stern. Okay, well, then what about you? You're gorgeous too, he said.
Oh, I know, said Damien vainly. I'm that bad boy women secretly want. Too bad for them I'm not interested.
Neither am I, said Nathaniel, shooting a furtive look at the group of giggling girls. Guys like us don't need women.
We're too good for them,
said Damien, prodding at the slab of misshapen meat he got from the cafeteria.
Damn this sad excuse for meat. I bet it's not even made from real cow.
He looked at Nathaniel, who hadn't even touched the mystery meat.
Afraid it'll bite?
No, he replied calmly. I'm a vegan. Damien let out a bark of a laugh.
Seriously? That's bloody pathetic!
You may think that, said Nathaniel, picking up the meat and dropping it on Damien's tray. "But it's my way of living."
Jesus Christ,
said Damien, shaking his head. He plopped his mashed potatoes and mixed vegetables onto Nathaniel's tray.
we're complete opposites. This friendship's never going to work.
Part of me agrees, Nathaniel replied sadly as he stared at his food. Humans make me sick. Damien's smile dropped.
That was a pretty malicious statement,
he said slowly. They don't help themselves, Nathaniel continued in an odd and cold tone. They expect everything to be done for them. They steal from each other, they kill each other, they push each other's emotions until they snap! He had gripped his fork so hard it broke in half. Damien actually looked frightened. Everyone is afraid of each other. No one feels safe letting out their feelings or opinions. They're all scum. God is disappointed.
I don't think you realize this,
said Damien quietly.
But you just revealed another similarity between us.
Nathaniel looked up, his face showing utmost disgust. You know, I am a Christian, he said softly. God put us into motion. However, I believe that he was the one who set off the Big Bang. It's like an experiment. It's a habitat that he introduced life forms to, and then sat back to see what happens.
That's the most intelligent thing I've heard a Christian say,
said Damien, still in that quiet, stunned voice.
Satan thinks along the same lines.
Does he now? Said Nathaniel, finally smiling again. Do you think God and Satan would become friends if they put aside their differences?
If they really tried.
Then why can't we? Damien went silent, staring at Nathaniel with a peculiar expression. Finally, he smirked.
I still hate you,
he said, stabbing his lunch meat.
But I'll accept the challenge. Risks are what make life fun.
You really consider this a risk? Said Nathaniel, pushing his carton of milk towards Damien.
A small one,
he replied.
But you don't take risks, do you? Goody-Goody likes a peaceful life and would never dream about doing something spontaneous and rebellious.
What makes you think I wouldn't? Asked Nathaniel, raising an eyebrow. Damien considered him for a moment, and then stood up.
All right, then,
he said.
Let's ditch.
What? Nathaniel exclaimed. No way! We'll get into trouble! Damien chuckled.
Fine, then. I'll go on my own. Just proves you're afraid of risks.
Nathaniel watched Damien walk away, then swallowed his pride and caught up with him. All right, I'm coming, he said, just to show you I'm perfectly capable of breaking the rules. Damien laughed as they left the cafeteria, strode down the hall, and exited the school.
Let's go get a coffee at the pier,
Damien suggested. I don't drink coffee, said Nathaniel. It makes me hyper.
If you ask me, you could use a little pick-me-up,
he replied.
I want to see you cut loose for once.
Damien.
Nate.
Nathaniel suddenly shoved him, and Damien stumbled, grabbing a hold of a fence to catch himself. Don't ever call me Nate, he shouted, exposing rage that Damien had never seen from him before. Call me Nate again, and I'll rip your eyes out! Damien held his hands up.
Okay.
They continued walking in silence. After a moment, Damien muttered, Goody-goody. Nathaniel hit his shoulder, and Damien laughed evilly, sprinting away. Nathaniel chased him all the way to the little strip of shops by the pier. He caught up with him and grabbed his arm tightly. He was glaring intensely, but smiling all the same. Damien stuck his tongue out and shook Nathaniel off his arm, looking at the menu of a small coffee shop. Damien had bought Nathaniel a decaf coffee, which had soy milk instead of regular milk, something Damien found very funny.
A little calcium would do you good,
he said.
And who orders decaf coffee anyway? You know it still has about 2% caffeine in it, right?
Yeah, but it doesn't affect me, Nathaniel replied, sipping his coffee. Damien watched him, then ripped the soy milk coffee out of his hand and replaced it with his own.
Drink it,
he demanded. I'm vegan!
Does it look like I give a shit?
They glared at each other momentarily.
Drink it.
By the time they were on the pier overlooking the beach, Nathaniel was absolutely euphoric. Damien smiled, watching as he twirled in the wind as if he'd never felt it before. He had unbuttoned his shirt all the way down moments ago, and now was allowing it to flow gently in the breeze. Damien finished his coffee and threw it onto the ground, not even bothering to locate a trash can. Nathaniel leaned over the railing to look down into the water. It's beautiful, he said as Damien joined him.
Yeah, I suppose,
he grunted. I'll push you in, said Nathaniel threateningly.
I bet you won't come in after me,
Damien replied.
Get your pretty little clothes wet.
He climbed up onto the rail and stood above Nathaniel, holding his arms up on either side of him.
Go ahead, push me in.
Nathaniel hesitated, but then thrust his hands out hard. Damien leapt aside, dodging him.
Whoops! Missed!
Then he turned and dove right down into the ocean. Nathaniel grabbed with frustration, then climbed over the rail and followed him.